march is really about remembering who we were before colonization, remembering how we lived, how we built community, how we lived together before colonization, and honoring the struggles of our ancestors who let us be here today to come together. So this is a ceremony. This is a moment of coming together. This is a moment of community building. And so as we march, I want you all to remember that and to feel that in your heart, and to make sure that your prayers are being sent for those reasons. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We have a young girl from the community who's going to be holding a sacred pipe. She's going to be the one setting the pace for the march. So she will be at the front along with the banner, along with our staffs and our spiritual person, our elder tinker. And so please don't get ahead of them. Please keep pace and please stick together. We don't want the group breaking up. We don't want the group splitting up, so please stick together. We also have a medic here with us. His name is Santi. If anybody needs water or has any medical needs, please come talk to him. He's trained and he can help you out. So I'll hand it off to Glenn here to share a couple more words if he has anything to share, and then we can start to get information and get ready to march.
Okay, we need to get going because there are 4 directions that are marching at the same time, and we're trying to be in sync to arrive at Karnataka Park at about the same time. So we'll be leaving in just a minute, but I know we have to do these things the proper way. Some of you are a little bit young, so you don't remember that this whole thing about Indigenous Peoples Day is new. It's new. There wasn't no Indigenous Peoples Day. There was Columbus Day. And we stopped it in this city. And it took us 30 years to do it. Longer than many of you have been alive. And so when we get to the park, we'll talk about that. But this march is a testament to our ancestors and to our own perseverance. And this is our homeland. They're not going to celebrate our genocide in our homeland. We're going to celebrate our life in our homeland. And so we want to thank you again for coming. So where's that banner that says 4 Directions March? The white one? The long white one? You can bring that over here. Thanks. So as Mateo was saying, we have a protocol for this. And we'll ask our singers, who we really thank for coming out, to sing a song so that Tink can give this sacred chanupa to this little girl. This is not performance. This is not performative politics here. This comes from the land. Ever since we started this struggle, every single year, a little girl has led us. A little girl carrying that sacred pipe to remind us about the power of these ways, these sacred ways. And didn't matter how many big aim guys were out there, how many people were willing to throw down with the cops, that little girl led us. And she's going to lead us today. And so we thank her for that. Sage is her name. Maybe you can shake her hand and thank her for leading us today. Because there are other young women here who did it 10, 15, 20 years ago. And now they're women. And they're going to help her today. But as we walk, we're going to walk here. We're going to go down to where that truck is. And we're going to hang her right. We're going to go all the way to Spear. When we get to Spear, you need to pay attention to the security and to the marshals. Because those people on Spear, they won't stop for you. They won't look out for you. We have to get across that street, and then we're going on the bike path all the way along Cherry Creek, all the way to the Platte River, where the Cheyennes and Arapahoes had a community where this city began. We're going to stop and pay homage to them at the confluence of those two bodies of water. And then we're going to walk on to Cuernavaca Park. And it's going, the sun's going to leave us here. So be careful as we're going along the path. Because some of those people, some of those hipsters, they think they own that path. That's an indigenous path tonight. And so we're going to walk along that path all the way to Cuernavaca Park. And so just please watch out for each other. We have water if people get thirsty. Especially for the singers, we need to take care of the singers as they're singing. And I just thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Indigenous people fit in, where Palestinian people fit, where Tigrayans fit. And that's what we're going to create. So plan to see more actions with all of us together. Join hands. This is just the beginning of a very powerful alliance among Indigenous people. Thank you for sharing your platform. My brother here. My brother, Dawit Young Mesmore, is going to share a piece that he wrote about Tigray. So thank you for listening.
Thank you guys once again for having us out here. Beautiful to bond with you guys. Amazing. And this is a piece that I wrote for the Tigray genocide. No GPSs for these routes. Gotta get back to the essence. Gotta get back to the truth. I'm not stressing over being in the back of a black coupe. Prefer the blessing of a welcome mat where I can hang my hat too. I don't know about you, but home feeling like it's going under now. They tried to bury us, but the roots stay underground. We use the religion and wisdom to spring up out of the system that's on a mission to see our downfall. But we need the rain for living. From the elders to the children, the lineage pass it down. We want independence and we ain't asking now. Thank you guys. Also, this Thursday we are having a protest of our own at 10 a.m. at Zeckendorf Plaza Park. We would love for you guys to come out and join us. Thank you guys so much for having us. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you. Do not forget that.
So, but on our march, we got some really good stuff.
It's a true honor to walk among you and share in this incredible tradition.
I think it's so important to have events like this and nights like these where we share our ideas and our struggles. And although the struggles of colonized people around the world might look a little bit different from one another, there is one common factor across them all, and that is the land itself. This fight is nothing if not for the land that we stand on and that our ancestors stood on and that many future generations will stand on as well. One thing that gets me is when I hear the phrase land back, and people say land back like it's just a thing to say or like it's just a metaphor, but it's not. Land back means land back. It doesn't mean housing permits, it doesn't mean tax breaks, it doesn't mean memorials. It means give us that shit back. You know, these days you hear a lot about like environmentalism and green initiatives and stuff. And I think that that is very important because the earth is in a very dire situation right now. But I actually believe land back to be an environmental issue. You know, when these colonizers came to our land, they didn't just brutalize our people. They brutalized the land. They have no love, they have no respect for the land. To them, the land is just another wild, savage thing for them to tame. To them, there's no concept of a symbiotic relationship. It's just take and take and take. That is the colonizer mentality. Basic species. That's right. In Palestine, the Israeli occupiers so often and so proudly say that they made the desert bloom. Never mind the beautiful orange groves of Jaffa. Never mind the fact that Palestine was a major exporter of things like wheat, barley, sesame, olive oil. Or the fact that for centuries, that land had been written about in texts the world over as one of the most fertile parts of a place that was literally called the Fertile Crescent. No, never mind all that. I personally take offense to it because my grandfather was a farmer in Palestine, and it was something that he was so proud of. And it makes my blood boil to see them try to erase my family's history, when in fact they had no idea what they were doing when it came to cultivating the lands that they stole. They showed up with heavy, bulky machines and thought this made them benevolent beings, bringing their technology to an uncivilized people, when in fact their Eurocentric farming practices were ineffective when used in Palestine. And it was only when they begrudgingly used the techniques that they learned from Palestinian farmers that they finally were able to till the land. So no, they didn't make the desert bloom. As a matter of fact, they did quite the opposite. Just like how they uprooted generations of families and replaced them with European people, they also uprooted generations of plants and replaced them with European plants. And we're just now starting to see the effects of that. This summer there were massive wildfires around Palestine, and they were caused by the European pines that were planted there by the European colonizers. So this is the earth fighting back against them and letting them know that they do not belong here. This idea of using environmentalism to distract from evil practices is something that America does too here. And it's something that's been dubbed greenwashing. And it's a cornerstone of Israeli propaganda. For example, the Israeli military boasts about how it provides some of its soldiers with uniforms that are free of animal products. So it's like they're blowing up hospitals and they're murdering children, but it's cool because they got vegan boots on. Can't wrap my head around it. Now all these examples that I gave, there are so many parallels that we can draw here to Turtle Island. Europeans showing up with their practices and technology that they thought were superior, only to end up starving without the help of the indigenous population. Destroying the land and wiping out everything on it, such as the endless herd of buffalo, with their insatiable appetite for theft and destruction. Which, by the way, that was a deliberate effort by the U.S. Army. So when you see that picture with all those buffalo skulls and whatever they tell us in the textbooks, like some cowboys got carried away. No, that was directed colonial violence designed to starve the indigenous population. Folks, our struggles are much more similar than they are different. And it's past time that we realize that. I really do love nights like these, where I see so many different people from so many different places coming together to share not just a mutual respect, but a mutual love for each other. Spaces like these truly make me believe that liberation is attainable. Not just attainable, but attainable in our lifetime. I'm going to wrap up here, I promise. I'm going to go back to what I opened with. If there's anything that I want you all to take away tonight, it is the idea of land back. It is not just a saying. Land back is an ideology. Land back is a way of life. Land back is a responsibility. Land back is a demand. This is something that we should carry into our lives and everything that we do. Decolonize your language. Decolonize your lives. Decolonize your mind. Don't just let this be a thing that you do when you see a Facebook event. Carry this into your lives. Let this be your philosophy. And land back means land back everywhere. Here on Turtle Island, up north in Canada, in Australia, in South Africa, in Tigray, and in Palestine. Again, I just want to thank our native relatives. Thank you all so much for inviting us into your space. We really are nothing without you. And we stand on your shoulders in our struggle. So free Turtle Island, free Tigray, and free Palestine. And then we do have a poet from our community. She's going to come and share a piece with you guys. Give it up to Diane, everybody.
And I am a Palestinian that is 10 years old. This is my poem. I remember a land that was beautiful, a land that people valued, a land that was worth millions, a land where uncles stood like glorious gold in the sky, a land where olive trees have grown for millions of years, a land that taught peace. With the trauma of the bomb, the soil soaked with blood, rivers filled with tears. If only my homeland returned to a beautiful place. If only my homeland returned to Palestine. Free, free Palestine.
Next up, we're going to go to the south direction, representing the Native community here in Denver. And the south direction this evening was marching in remembrance of all the children that were stolen from us in the boarding schools, or as we like to call them, the genocide schools. And so this evening we're going to welcome Theresa, who's going to share some spoken word with us. We're also going to welcome Glenn C. Morris, who's going to share some of his words with us as well. So everybody give it up for our speakers from the South Direction.
Hello, my name is Theresa Williams, and I come from the Dakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Ojibwe tribes. I'm here representing the children that had to endure the genocide schools. The trauma still lives today. I have a poem for the Indigenous youth specifically. It's called Rebel. Dear Indigenous youth, I know the anger that lives inside you, the pain, the sorrow, the grief, the longing, the trauma, all stored inside unnamed boxes, lined up along a spiral staircase that we have yet to unpack. Because let's face it, there are billions of staircases inside me that withhold information that have been passed down from generation to generation, like family heirlooms. But instead of your grandma's old jewelry, or your grandpa's old car, or your family's mansion built in the 1800s that's been renovated to have a pool, a pond, and a butler, it's more like having your children ripped away from you. It's more like having your culture intentionally stripped from you. It's trying to survive starvation during the winter because our food source has been killed off. It's trying to survive a pandemic placed on you in the form of blankets. It's seeing your grandmother get shot by the men with hollow eyes for practicing traditional ways. You're only 5. It's running for your life faster than bullet speed. It's running towards the trees for protection. It's living to tell the stories. The family heirlooms in these boxes are hard to look through. But the more boxes you open on the infinite amount of spiral staircases, the more boxes you find filled with stories of resiliency, strength, connection, traditions, knowledge, happiness, community, laughter, love. And you are the genetic makeup of all the boxes of memories and knowledge your family has passed down to you. I know it's easy to let your anger take control, but this is a revolution, and I need you to rebel in the ways that help our evolution. Rebel by loving yourself because they taught you not to. Rebel by speaking your native tongue because they punish you for it. Rebel by using your medicine because they fear that power. Rebel by occupying this land because they forced you off of it. Rebel by healing generational trauma and cycles because they never wanted you to. Rebel by raising your children to love everyone because they never did. Rebel by making your voice heard because they silenced you too many times. Our rebellion doesn't have to be in their terms. We don't have to act the way that they want us to, the way that we've been conditioned to for years. The anger from the pain caused could very well turn us into merciless Indian savages. But that's not us. We weren't born to act with hate and remorse. We were born to melt the ice of pain with the fire within, to reach the never-ending flow of love that is available to us. We were born to share the love with those that need it most. We were born to remind others that we are all children of the earth. It's time again to treat her like our mother and take care of her. We were born to remind ourselves and others to love without limit, because that's the most powerful thing you can do in this life. Why do you think you were taught to hate yourself? Because to them, one of the most dangerous things you can do is to love yourself, love others, and love the earth. Always remember who you came from, where you came from, and what you came from. With love, with much love.
I can't follow that. Bujang kita benar kan tak pergi mana tu issue. Ask our ancestors to come and stand with us, to be with us, speak into our ears. You know, those people over those buildings, they probably think this is pretty stupid to have a march and a rally in the dark of night. Nobody can see us, no television cameras in. Except all you live streamers. We didn't do it for them. We didn't do it for that. I want you to remember the feeling, especially those from the south. Remember when we came across 15th Street, we came down that ramp, and we came along the river, and it got really cool. And we could feel the river embrace us. That's why we do it. This is our homeland. It will always be our homeland. It will always love us. And we must love it back. And when we came along the river, and the river embraced us, and the moon embraced us, and the stars embraced us, we didn't need television cameras. We didn't need their acceptance. We don't need their recognition. You know, I was getting a little discouraged until I heard my niece there. Getting a little discouraged, wondering where the next generation is. I'm really glad to see. I don't need this. I was really glad to see everybody here. Made my heart really strong. With my niece Sky and a few of her friends, they decided to organize this relatively recently. As you said, we've been doing this for 30 years. Started in 1988. About 50 of us at the state capitol, calling for the abolition of Columbus Day in its birthplace here in Denver, Colorado. The American Indian movement says, we can't kill that racist holiday in its birthplace. There's something wrong with us. And it shows you how much they'll hold on to the racist legacy of this place. Listening to my brother Abdullah talking about Palestine. You know, manifest destiny and Zionism, they're two sides of the same coin. Because they have a God that says that they can take somebody else's homeland. They call it the doctrine of Christian discovery here. And the Supreme Court embraced it and stole 2 billion acres of our territory. My dear friend Gracie Richard Todd and I, we were on a Zoom call today about restorative justice. That's the latest thing of these guys. Restorative justice, my ass. Restorative justice. This is my test about restorative justice. Whenever you hear a non-native person talk about restorative justice, you ask them this. The Supreme Court in 1823 in Johnson versus McIntosh said the doctrine of Christian discovery gave the invaders. They're not settlers. They're not pioneers. They're not visitors. They're invaders. They invaded our homeland. Those license plates that talk about pioneers this, they're not pioneers. They invaded this land. They're occupiers of this land. Every one of those people in those buildings, they don't get a pass. We talk about restorative justice. This is the test you ask them. If they're on the Supreme Court and they can reverse Johnson versus McIntosh, that stole our entire homeland from us. And they made it up. Would they reverse it? Would they reverse it if it meant they had to give up their home, or their grandparents had to give up their home? Because ours did. Ours did. And if they're not willing to do that, then they don't want to restore anything. It's the same thing with reconciliation. Truth and reconciliation. Reconciliation. First of all, in order to have reconciliation, there must be conciliation. There's never been conciliation. They've never honored the treaties. Not one of them. And then they make holidays through their lies, through their theft. And they excuse themselves for being in the homeland of other people. And that's why we said Columbus Day has to go. Not because we wanted Indigenous Peoples Day. The American Indian Movement of Colorado never wanted Indigenous Peoples Day. We don't want their day. We don't want their stinking day. We want them to honor the treaties. 27 million acres of northeastern Colorado they stole from the Cheyennes and Arapahoes. 27 million acres. Give it back. But I was really glad to see you. You know, I know that we can get really angry. But when we're walking with those Chanukes, when we're walking with our sacred elements, the sweetgrass and the cedar and the sage and the copal and these drums, we know that those buildings won't endure, the land will endure. The land will endure. What I want to say, and I apologize in advance, sometimes I say when I get older, my heart gets closer to my throat. Sometimes it chokes me up. There are a whole lot of people whose shoulders we're standing on tonight. We wouldn't be here without them. And I want to name them, I want to mention them. And I know in some of our traditions, indigenous traditions, people don't do that. And what our sister Theresa from Pueblo said about Rita, that tradition of Latin American revolutionaries, you know, and calling presente when we hear the names of people who have gone on, but who are still here with us. I love that tradition. So I want to remember my brother Russell Means. And for those young people who don't know the names of the people I'm mentioning, you need to use your computer and your phone for something other than Facebook. Russell Means is the founder of American Revolution. And without him, none of us would be standing here right now. He led the American Indian movement, and he led this struggle against Columbus Day. My sister Charlene Yellowwood. Yankee Bad Hand. Carried that legal staff for us for years and years and years. When we went to jail, we went on trial. We're saying that we're not going to stand for this racism in our homeland anymore. Yankee was with us. Matriarch Carrie Dan, who came from the Western Shoshone Nation, one of the strongest women I've ever known in my life, fighting for the Treaty of Ruby Valley, Nevada. And young people, this is why you have to keep going. We're not going to be here someday. Carrie just passed last year. But with every day she got up and fought against the injustice of the invader United States in the Western Shoshone Territory. And since she gone, the two largest gold mining corporations in the world have surrounded her home at Crescent Valley in Nevada. And they're going to carry it away so that people can wear gold rings and gold necklaces in this invader society. And Carrie Dan marched with us. She knew her struggle was our struggle and our struggle was her struggle. And it was. And I remember her. Robert Buckskin came every year. Ivor Roy from the Meskwaki Nation. Aunt Norma Williams every year. Margaret Redshirt Tyon. Lily Fobb. Ida and Logan Bear. Ohiniwi Chakmi Peters. Those little girls. I want to say something really fast. I won't say anything. Those little girls. Sage, right here. Those little girls who helped us today. Who played those chalupas for us. Because we always said, we bring those little girls to humble us. To remember that our ancestors are with us. And it wasn't big, tough AIM guys who led us. Every single year when we went to jail, big, tough, macho AIM guys, it was little girls with the chalupas who led us. To remind us of the power of our sacred ways. And Ohio she was the very first little girl, way back in 1989. I miss her. Miss her every day. Black Horse Foster, her brother. Corky and Geraldine Gonzalez marched with us. And Brenda Jenkins and my brother George Morris. Gerald Henry. The list goes on. But without those people, none of us would be standing here right now. They gave their lives for this movement. And these can't be hollow words. I'm going to wrap up with this. This can't be an event, a one-off. We have to make the commitment to each other right now, with the person standing next to you. That this movement will continue beyond this night. We have a center at 5th and Bannock, Four Winds American Indian Council. I want my niece to come and give a poetry workshop there. I want these young people who have these skills to make liberation videos. This isn't simply about land back. It is about that. It's about our self-determination. And I don't mean the self-determination that the U.S. government talks about, where they throw you crumbs. As the native people of this land, and this is what the American Indian movement always said, we have the right to be free. We are not Americans. America invaded our home. And we have the right to decide. If people want to be Americans, that's fine. That's up to them. But America is never going to respect us. Ever. And so we have the right, in our own home, to control our own territory and make our own political decisions without external interference. And that doesn't mean accepting the crumbs with piddly-ass jobs in their system. Or positions like Deb Haaland. I like Deb Haaland, the Secretary of Interior. But you think they're gonna allow her to return the Gestapo, the Black Hills, to the Lakota Nation? You're out of your mind. They're never going to do that. They're never going to allow those treaties to be respected. And so we have the right right to be free in our own home. Anything short of that is accepting our position as prisoners of war by an occupying power. And we must always struggle to be free. And I was looking at a quote from the great Papa leader, the Tatanka Yotaka, Sitting Bull. And when I was younger, I didn't really understand this quote. He said, if a person loses something and they look for it and they go back and look for it, they will find it. And I thought, duh. But I didn't understand the wisdom of one of the greatest leaders of our people who ever lived. And recently I've begun to understand that. I want you young people to listen to those words. If you lose something and you go back and you look for it, you will be sure to find it. And he's talking about your freedom. He's talking about your languages. He's talking about your independence. He's talking about your identity as free nations of people. And you're not going to find that on Facebook. And you're not going to find that in the technology that they throw at us. They mean to take your mind. They mean to imprison your mind. And that, my friends, is the next battlefield. The battlefield for your minds. And you must resist with all of the power of your ancestors, because they mean to take your very free will. And if you listen to that river, and you listen to those trees, and you listen to that moon, I mean really listen, and you go to ceremony, and you sing the songs that these drums sang for us tonight, you will always be free in your homeland. I want our brothers and sisters from Tigray, from Palestine, from Aotearoa, New Zealand, from Tibet, from Kurdistan, from Uyghuristan, all the people who are in struggle. I want them to know you have a home at Four Winds American Indian Council. I want you to know that that place in the middle of Denver, they hate us. The city hates us. We are free in the middle of the city of Denver. And they can't stand it. They can't stand it. You know, they couldn't stand our unhoused relatives to have 100 feet of sidewalk to live on. Our own people, refugees in their own homeland. And the city couldn't stand that they would live on the sidewalk outside of Four Winds, and they brought the police, and they brought the SWAT team, and they brought all these people to sweep them out. A month ago. I'm not talking about 100 years ago, I'm talking about a month ago. They can't stand Indian people being free. They can't stand Native people asserting themselves in their own homeland. And those unhoused people, thanks to my niece, they're still living at Four Winds. And Mateo. And we need your help. We need you to come to Four Winds. We need you to make Four Winds the liberation zone that it's intended to be. The liberated zone that it's intended to be. Come and bring your spoken word. Come and bring your talent and your skills. Come and be free Native people. Unapologetic for who we are. That's why we come here. We come here after they tell us we can't, and we still do it. Because this land loves us, and we love it. And so, my niece asked me to remind everybody. But before we wrap up, we came together in a good way. So we have to be thankful as we go back to our homes and go back to our families and make that commitment to one another. Shake hands with the person next to you who you didn't meet before tonight. As the kids say, get their digits. Make their contact. Stay in touch with one another. We're not alone. We're not alone. Look around. When we first started this movement, we had 25 people at the state capitol. And every year it grew more and more and more. So I want to ask my niece to help us to wrap this up. And I hope that we can end by singing again the American Indian Movement song. The Killers of the American Indian Movement. In 1974, Jordan, Nebraska, after the murder of Raymond Yellow Thunder. And when we sing that song, we remember all of our ancestors who gave their lives so that we can be here today. And when those honor beats are hit, we remember them. And we remember our responsibility to be them, to be the ancestors of the future generations. We always ask ourselves, if our ancestors came out from that riverbed today, would they be proud to call us their descendants? And I'm confident tonight, looking at you all, that the answer to that would be yes.
Thank you very much, Uncle. And I really wanted to ask my uncle, he doesn't really like to talk very much anymore, but it's really important because he's one of the few people left that really knows the real history of this struggle. And I was reading an article yesterday evening because I couldn't sleep because I was anxious about what was going to happen today. But a relative from Big Mountain, which is a struggle that our relative Shannon Francis and her people, the Hopi people, have been fighting against for a long time against Peabody Coal. There was a relative by the name of Benali who passed away there. And one of the quotes Benali said that really resonated me about tonight was about struggle. And about the elders telling those guys at Black Mesa that they needed to take their struggle outside of the mesa. That was the only way that struggle was going to live. Because our struggles separately will fizzle out. But our struggles together are an unstoppable force. Unstoppable. And that's what we started here tonight. We've started that unstoppable force. But it's up to each of us to carry that responsibility forward. It's no one person's responsibility to carry this forward. It's a collective responsibility. We no longer alleviate ourselves of our responsibility. That's what decolonization is, everybody. It is taking responsibility for yourself. And it is saying, I am free to be responsible. I don't need the police to tell me what is right and wrong because I'm a free person. I'm a responsible person. Which is why we don't need the police. We don't need invader states. We don't need people to tell us how to be good relatives because we should know how to do that. Because we have elders. We have spiritual people. We have Mother Earth. She tells us how to be a good relative every day. Those are the teachings. And the last thing I would like to say before I ask the singers to sing us a thank you song to our ancestors for their sacrifice, for everything they did so we could come here this evening together in a good way, and then to sing a closing song to send them back to the ancestors back across the Milky Way. There was a quote by Moana Jackson
a Maori relative of ours. He's one of my heroes. And if you ever get the chance to look him up on YouTube, Moana Jackson, I highly recommend it. He's one of the most eloquent speakers I've ever met in my life. One of the most spiritual people I've ever met in my life, and he's battling cancer right now. And something that he said a long time ago that really resonated with me and resonates with me and what my uncle said this evening was his daughter, or his granddaughter, had only learned Maori. She didn't know English, so she was learning English as a second language. And so she was sitting on the couch with him one day, and she pointed to this word and asked her grandfather to help her understand what the word was. And the word that she pointed to was future. And Moana Jackson sat there for a long time. He's a lawyer, he's a brilliant thinker. And he was having a hard time trying to decide how to explain what a future is to a 6-year-old child. And I ask you all to think about that. Reflect upon that. How would you explain what a future is to a 6-year-old child? And this is what Moana Jackson said. A future is when you bring the past into your present and you carry it with you into all of your tomorrows. That's what a future is. And that's an Indigenous worldview of a future, because we don't have a future without bringing our ancestors with us. We don't have a future unless we bring the present with us. We will never have a future if we don't acknowledge and understand our history. So Indigenous Peoples Day did not just come out of the ethos. It took 30 years of struggle to abolish a racist holiday, and people need to remember that history. People need to remember names of the people who fought. We cannot forget Corky Gonzalez. We cannot forget Geraldine Gonzalez. We cannot forget Russell Meade. We cannot forget Troylyn Yellowwood. We cannot forget these people, because without them we would be nothing. And without the people standing here right now, I can't just acknowledge people in the past, I have to acknowledge people in the present. I want to acknowledge Kenny Cross. We're on his homeland right now. I want to acknowledge Tomas Lopez, who's been a fierce leader and spiritual advisor in our community. I want to acknowledge Uncle Tomas and Auntie Donna, the two fiercest danzantes I've known my whole life. And I've had the pleasure of praying with many of these people. I want to thank my uncle Glenn Morris. I want to thank Steve Tinker. I want to thank Gracie Redshirt Tyon. I want to thank Malete. I want to thank Rima and Abdullah and all of our Palestinian and Tigrayan relatives who joined us this evening. And just remember that we have a right to be free in our homeland, and we have a right to not feel inferior in our homeland. But it's a challenge we must take responsibly. So without further ado, I just want to say thank you to everyone who came out tonight. I really can't, none of us would have happened without everybody. And I really want to say a special shout out to my sister Hillary, sitting in this wheelchair right here. You know, it was really Hillary's idea that this get started. She started pestering me a couple weeks ago and said, you know, Sky, we need to have a 4 Directions march. And so it wouldn't be without people like Hillary here pestering me saying we got to keep it going. So thank you, Hillary. Thank you for encouraging me and saying we have a responsibility as Indigenous women to keep this fight going. And so thank you very much, sister. I really appreciate that. And so I would like to ask the singers at this time to come up and honor us with a thank you song. And then after that, we'll sing a closing song. And then we'll shake hands with people if you're comfortable with that. If not, that's fine too. And then we'll start going off in a good way. If people brought cars here to take people back into the directions, identify yourselves. If we could keep all the flags back here. If you have a banner or flag that doesn't belong to you, we can stack them back there. That would be great. And again, I just really want to thank everybody again for coming out, for praying, and keep this momentum going. Come out for the Tigrayans, come out for the Palestinians, come out for our Chicano relatives, come out for us when we need you to. Because Thanksgiving is coming. Thanksgiving is coming. And we want to have a national day of mourning. We want to have an event of our own to remind people that that is nothing worth celebrating. Stealing and committing genocide is nothing worth celebrating. So thank you very much. Asham.